U7 presents Taming Capitalism and Wall Street, the legacy of Professor Lynn A. Stout. It seems ridiculous to me that communists and socialists criticize capitalism when they have been incapable of creating a better alternative. It is obvious that neither communist or socialist knows what makes capitalism work. So, if they don't know about this game, maybe they should step aside and pay attention. What is true is that capitalism needs an upgrade. Look at Wall Street. It is a world market. It is a great invention. But as we know from chaos theory, small differences in the initial conditions can produce enormous differences in the final outcome. You know this as the butterfly effect. Changes to the banking laws created a positive feedback loop that had nothing to stop it or to control it, to control all that energy that was released. This was totally predictable and avoidable. That should never happen again. A lot of people got hurt, really hurt. As I've said elsewhere in another presentation, that capitalism has beat communism and socialism because it makes a better use of cybernetics. The same thing happened in World War II. The Allies beat the Enigma machine and the German war machine because of better cybernetics. Cybernetics beats engineering. Besides, communism and socialism have very poor engineering. They quickly become an authoritarian, centralized government. That is the worst cybernetics possible. Getting to the point, the work of Professor Lynn A. Stout provides many clues on how to change Wall Street, where many businesses crash, into a Door Street, where many large corporations find a path to thrive and prosper. Lynn is suggesting a path where savage capitalism evolves into a better, more humane-oriented form of capitalism. I would add, as in the cybernetic state. First, I will mention her 2012 book, The Shareholder Value Myth. In it, she holds that shareholders are really not owners or act as one, that they have a contract to get dividends and profit when the stock prices goes up. That's it. She even says that stockholders are a fiction. They do not own the company.
It is completely misleading to describe shareholders as owners of firms. They're not. They are people who enter contracts with firms just as bondholders, employees, suppliers enter contracts with firms. What about this notion that shareholders are entitled to all the profits left over after other firm participants have been paid? Or, as an economist would put it, that shareholders are the residual claimants. Well, it turns out that's only an accurate description of dead firms that are being liquidated. It's not.
She argues that dividends are decided by the board of directors and expenses are chosen by the CEO. Shareholder power over management is theoretical.
Firms. Well, actually, shareholders do not get a penny unless the directors decide to declare a dividend. They're not, in any realistic sense, entitled to take all of the profits. They have to wait for the directors to give it to them. Now, at this point, I always get a very sensible finance student.
It is hedge funds, on the other hand, with high participation of shareholders who focus on stock prices, and prices depend on profits. This fixation with a stock's market value puts a lot of pressure on CEOs to show profits in the next quarter. Not always a very good decision. The British petroleum oil spill is a good example of how cutting costs created a disastrous result for the company and its shareholders, and for many others too.
To make our lives better. And the example is BP. You probably remember that on April 20th in 2010, an oil well that BP was drilling in the Gulf of Mexico suddenly exploded. And the oil rig, the Deepwater Horizon, went up in a column of fire that burned for 2 days before it finally collapsed into the depths of the Gulf of Mexico, killing 11 people and beginning the worst oil spill in, I believe, the history of humanity. This was a disaster on a scale that's very hard to imagine. But it was especially a disaster for BP shareholders themselves. BP shares had been trading around $60 a share US before the Deepwater Horizon explosion, and within a month or so afterwards, they had been halved to $30 a share. A loss in BP's market capitalization of 100.
In another of her books, Professor Lynn Stout writes about Cultivating Conscience, the name of the book. She argues that good laws make good people. Here she embraces the cybernetic theory that the law system is a very powerful attractor. It prevails over the will of individuals, including stockholders and even managers. It also fits with the Maturana and Varela thesis that all living systems' main characteristic is that they are able to self-produce themselves. Corporations are not an exception. This means conserving their identity as they adapt to the environment. Cultivating Conscience also argues in favor of a positive feedback loop, which is a win-win situation for the people investing in a business in the stock market and the business that receives the investment. The key is to connect these two positive outputs together so that good citizens put pressure on corporations, which then must act ethically and increase the value of the stock. This is a positive feedback loop. It's a win-win situation. Simply said, better access to corporate information and policymaking will restitute the investor as the real owner of the Wall Street Corporation and help achieve corporate social responsibility in a very natural way. Having recognized that the lust for profit hurts everybody, she presents a solution. Her book, Citizen Capitalism, takes her to tackle several problems of capitalism at once. Her aim is to make capitalism more inclusive. She argues in favor of creating a universal fund, actually a mega fund, which would be distributed to a wide proportion of the American population, all those over 18 years old. She tackles economic marginalization and poverty with one stroke. Plus, she infuses the population with a mega doses of capitalist culture. Of course, this requires connecting to the first book where stockholders will be able to influence corporate governance. Then, stockholders could really influence corporations to abandon the next quarter profit and focus on long-term viability. To me, it seems that Stafford Bear's idea and the Bible system model will someday finally fall in place. To say it in 3 words, what the investor really wants and the world really needs is viability, not profits. Thank you for watching